Alien girl feared human rock music. Now she can't stop listening. Leora walked alone through the long metal corridor of Delta 7 space station. The air was cool and dry, and the hum of the life support machines filled her ears. She liked quiet places. Her species, the Illyrians, had very sensitive hearing. Even the low sound of the station's machines sometimes felt too much for her. But today, there was another sound. It was not the usual hum. It was deeper, stronger. It rolled through the metal floor like distant thunder. The vibration touched her feet first, then climbed into her chest. She stopped walking and tilted her head. It came from somewhere ahead, behind a set of heavy doors marked in bright human letters. Club Nebula. Leora had heard of this place. Humans used it to play something they called music. Some of it was soft and pleasant, but some was loud and violent. They called that one hard rock. Her people said it was dangerous. Too many beats. Too much force, it will damage your ears. Her mother once warned. Illyrian ears were delicate. A sharp sound could make them ache for days. Still, something about this deep, pulsing noise pulled her closer. It was like a wild animal calling from inside the club. Every few seconds, a heavy boom-boom hit her chest, followed by a sharp cry of metal strings. She didn't understand why humans liked this. Was it not painful to them? She took one step forward, then another. The air seemed to grow warmer as she approached. The sound grew louder. Her heartbeat started to follow the same rhythm. Boom, boom, boom. It was strange, but not as painful as she had imagined. Not yet. She stopped only 2 meters from the door. The letters Club Nebula glowed in red light. Beneath them, smaller letters read, "Live Band Tonight." She could feel the sound pressing against her skin. It was like standing close to an engine. Only this had shape. It rose and fell. It screamed and whispered. It was chaos, but it had a pattern. Her hand almost reached for the door handle, but she pulled it back. She remembered a story from her cousin. He had once passed by a human club and could not hear properly for 3 days after. His ears rang with a high note that never stopped until it faded. Leora did not want that. She turned to leave. But at that exact moment, the door opened. Bright-colored lights spilled into the corridor. Red, blue, purple, flashing in time with the music. And there, in the doorway, stood a human. He was young, with dark hair and a wide smile. His shirt had strange shapes and words she could not read. Around his neck hung a shiny, curved object with strings. "Hey," he said over the music. His voice was warm, friendly. "You lost." Leora shook her head quickly. She took a small step back. "No," she said, her voice soft. "I was just passing by." He looked at her for a moment, his eyes curious. "Never seen you in here before," he said. "You should come in. The band is amazing tonight." Her ears twitched at another loud crash from inside. She winced. "I can't," she said. "It's too loud for me." The human laughed gently. "It's called hard rock," he said. "Don't worry. You might like it once you hear it the right way." Leora frowned. "The right way?" she asked. He nodded. "Music isn't just sound, it's feeling," he said. "It's not here to hurt you, it's here to move you." She almost laughed. Move her. It already had moved her right to the door, but still, she was not ready to go inside. Her mind told her it would be dangerous. Her heart told her to take one more step. The human seemed to sense her fear. He stepped aside, holding the door open. "Just watch from here," he said. "No pressure." From the doorway, Leora saw the inside. Humans filled the room. Some danced, some jumped, some shouted in joy. Colored lights flashed over their faces. On the stage, 3 humans played instruments. One hit a set of round shapes with sticks. Another held a long, shining object and plucked its strings. And in the center was the loudest one, the singer, his voice raw, but full of life. The music pounded. It was fierce. It was alive. And though it was strange to her, Leora felt something unexpected. Not pain, not fear, but a spark of excitement. She did not step inside. Not yet. But she also did not walk away. Something inside her whispered, "Stay." And so she stood in the doorway, the strange sound wrapping around her. Her journey into the world of human hard rock had just begun. Leora stood in the doorway. The lights inside the club flashed and changed like a living storm. The music shook the air, every beat rolling through her chest. She thought she would hate it, but she didn't. Not yet. The human who had spoken to her still stood nearby. He leaned against the doorframe, smiling at her nervous expression. "My name's Evan," he said, raising his voice over the music. "What's yours?" "Leora," she replied softly. Her voice almost vanished under the heavy rhythm. Evan cupped a hand to his ear. "Say that again." She leaned a little closer. Leora, she said again. Evan grinned. Nice name, he said. First time near hard rock. She nodded. I have never heard this much sound, she admitted. Her eyes moved to the humans dancing, moving as if the music was inside them. What are they doing? She asked. Evan glanced at the crowd. They're feeling it, he said. They let the music take over. Tilted her head. Doesn't it hurt? She asked. It is so loud. Evan laughed. For us, it's not pain. It's energy, he said. It's like flying, but without leaving the ground. Leora's people had no music like this. They had soft, slow songs played on crystal flutes. Sound was something delicate for Illyrians, something you held carefully, like light in your hands. But here, sound was wild, like fire, and these humans were not afraid to stand in the flames. A sudden cheer erupted from the crowd. On stage, the drummer spun one of his sticks, hit the cymbal, and sent a wave of metallic sound across the room. Leora flinched, her ears twitching. Evan noticed. Too much? He asked. She took a slow breath. I don't know, she said honestly. It is strange, but I want to see more. Evan's eyes lit up. That's the spirit, he said. He stepped aside, giving her a clear view of the stage. The guitarist stood at the front now, his fingers moving so fast, Leora could barely follow. The sound he made was sharp and bright, like sunlight bouncing off steel. The singer leaned forward, gripping the microphone, his voice raw and fierce. The crowd moved like one body, heads and shoulders rocking in time with the beat. Leora felt the floor thump under her boots. She felt her own heart trying to match the rhythm. It was unsettling. It was also exciting. Evan saw her curiosity growing. You know, he said, I can play something softer. If you want to try. She shook her head quickly. No, she said, surprising herself. I want to hear what they are hearing. Evan's smile widened. All right, he said, but we'll take it slow. They stepped just inside the door. The sound wrapped around her. It was heavier now, but it didn't crush her. Instead, it pushed her, like a strong wind. Her ears tingled. But the ache she feared didn't come. They stood near the wall, away from the main crowd. From here she could see the band clearly, the drummer's arms moving like machinery, the guitarist's fingers dancing, the singer's voice rising and falling like waves in a storm. What are they saying? Leora asked. Evan tilted his head. It's about breaking free, he said. About not letting anyone tell you who you are. Leora thought about that. Her people followed strict rules about speech, about behavior, about sound, music. Like this would be banned in an Illyrian city, but here, it was celebrated. The song reached its peak, a fast, roaring wall of sound, and then, suddenly, silence. The crowd exploded in cheers. Leora's hands tingled. She realized she had been holding her breath. She let it out slowly, feeling strangely lighter. That, Evan said with a grin, was just the first song. Her eyes widened. There is more. Of course, he said. This is only the start. The band began another song. This one started slow, almost gentle. Leora relaxed. But then the drums kicked in, and the music surged forward like a sudden storm. She gasped. Her body tensed. But she didn't step back. Instead, she stayed where she was. Something inside her wanted to know what would happen next. The sound was no longer just noise. It had patterns, colors, shapes. She could almost see it in the air. She could feel it painting pictures in her mind. And though she didn't yet understand why, Leora realized she was smiling, just a little, but enough for Evan to notice. That's it, he said softly. You're getting it, for the first time. Leora wondered if the warnings about human hard rock had been wrong. Maybe, she thought. This was not about hurting ears. Maybe this was about opening something inside the heart. She didn't know yet, but she wanted to find out. The music slowed again. The lights above the stage faded to a soft blue. The crowd clapped and cheered, but in a gentler way now. It felt like the storm had passed for a moment. Evan turned to Leora. You handled that pretty well, he said. Most people from outside can't even stand this close their first time. Leora shook her head slightly. I'm not sure what I felt, she admitted. It was strong, but it was not bad. That's the magic of it, Evan said with a grin. It feels dangerous at first, but it's not here to hurt you. She looked back at the crowd. Some humans were talking to each other, laughing, sipping colorful drinks. Others were still swaying slowly, waiting for the next song. There was life in every face. Her people rarely showed this much emotion in public. It made her chest feel strange. Evan leaned a little closer. Tell you what, he said. Come up to the front with me for the next song. Leora's eyes widened. The front, she repeated. Her gaze drifted to the moving crowd near the stage. They were pressed together, heads bobbing, arms waving. It looked chaotic. I don't think I can, she said. Evan chuckled. You don't have to dance, he told her. Just stand with me, hear it the way it's meant to be heard. Leora took a small step back. I can hear it from here, she said. Her ears twitched at a memory, her cousin's warning, about the painful ringing. I don't want to damage my hearing. Evan's smile softened. You trust me? He asked. She hesitated. She had met him only minutes ago, yet something about his voice made her want to believe him. I think so, she said slowly. Then trust me on this, he said. Come to the front. If it's too much, we'll step back right away. The lights in the club shifted again, from blue to deep red. The guitarist strummed a single, heavy note that seemed to hang in the air. The crowd stirred like animals sensing a coming storm. Evan extended his hand. His expression was open, patient. Leora looked at the crowd, then at his hand. She wasn't ready, but she also didn't want to turn away. Finally, she placed her hand in his. His grip was steady but gentle. All right, she said, but only for one song. Evan grinned. One song, he promised. He began to lead her forward. The crowd shifted to make space for them. Some people glanced at her, a tall, thin alien with pale skin and delicate ears, but most smiled and nodded. The closer they moved to the stage, the warmer the air felt. The smell of human perfumes, sweat, and something sweet from the bar filled her nose. The sound was heavier here. The floor almost seemed to breathe with the beat of the drums. They stopped just a few meters from the stage. Leora could see every detail now, the singer's determined eyes, the shine on the guitar strings, the way the drummer's hair flew as he moved. The guitarist hit another loud note, and the crowd erupted in cheers. Leora flinched, but didn't pull away. Her hand stayed in Evan's. You okay? He asked, leaning toward her ear. She nodded quickly. Yes, I think so, she said, though her heart was racing. The drummer gave 3 quick hits. Boom, 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 and the next song began. The sound rushed over her like a wave. It was stronger than before. She could feel it in her bones, in the air, in her teeth. Her first instinct was to cover her ears. But she didn't. Instead, she looked around. The humans weren't just listening, they were living inside the music. Their movements were wild but in sync. It was like they shared a single heartbeat. Evan leaned toward her again. Now you're hearing it like we do, he said. Not just with your ears, with your whole body. Leora wanted to deny it, but he was right. Her chest thumped with the rhythm. The music filled every space around her. It was not something you could keep at a distance. It demanded that you feel it. A sudden high note from the guitar sent a shiver through her. It wasn't pain. It was something else. Something that made her feel more awake, more alive. The song built faster. The crowd jumped in time. Evan let go of her hand so he could move with the beat. She didn't move much, but her head began to nod slightly. She didn't even notice at first. When the song ended, the crowd roared. Leora realized she had been breathing hard. She looked at Evan. That was different, she said. In a good way, he asked. She hesitated. Yes, she said finally, in a very strange, good way. Evan's grin widened. Then I guess you're ready for the next step, he said. She frowned slightly. The next step? You'll see, he said. And before she could ask again, the band began another song. The sound rose once more, and deep inside, Leora knew she was not walking away from this world anytime soon. The crowd was still cheering from the last song when Evan leaned close to Leora. Stay here, he said. I'll be right back. Before she could ask where he was going, he slipped through the moving bodies. She watched him weave toward the side of the stage. Her ears twitched at the sudden quiet. The band was taking a short break. Only soft hums from the speakers filled the air. Leora used the pause to breathe. Her chest felt light, but her head buzzed with leftover energy. It was strange. She should have been exhausted from the noise. But instead, she felt awake. Too awake, the crowd began talking among themselves. Some ordered drinks. Others laughed and clapped each other on the back. Everyone seemed to know each other here. She felt like a visitor in a secret place. A few minutes later, Evan returned, holding something long and slim in his hands. It was smaller than the guitars on stage, but it still had strings. The body was smooth and dark, the metal parts shining in the colored lights. What is that? She asked. This, he said with a small smile, is an acoustic guitar. No big speakers, no heavy amps, just strings and my hands. He tapped the wood gently. I thought you might want to hear hard rock, in a way that won't overwhelm you. She tilted her head. Curious. You can play without all the thunder. He chuckled. It's still music. Just softer, he said. But the heart of it is the same. He led her to a quieter corner of the club, away from the crowd. The lights here were dim, and the sound from the main stage was faint. Evan sat on a tall stool, and motioned for her to sit on another. Ready? He asked. She hesitated. What will it sound like? Like a story, he said, but told through notes instead of words. He placed his fingers on the strings and began to play. The first note was warm and gentle. It floated in the air like sunlight through a window. Leora blinked. This was not what she expected. It didn't crash or roar. It spoke. Softly but with purpose. Her ears relaxed. Each note carried a weight of emotion she couldn't name. Evan's fingers moved with care, plucking and strumming. The melody was slow at first, like a calm walk. Then it grew faster, like running through an open field. It felt alive. What is this song? She asked quietly. It's one I wrote myself, he said without stopping. It's about the first time I left Earth. I was scared, but also excited. She listened closer. She could hear both feelings in the sound. The small pauses, that felt like hesitation. The sudden rushes, that felt like courage. It was strange to feel so much from something without words. As he played, her mind filled with pictures. She imagined a human ship lifting off from a blue-green planet, the stars rushing closer. She imagined the first time she saw another world. She realized she was smiling. You're feeling it, Evan said softly, noticing her expression. That's what music does. It gives you feelings you can't explain, but you still understand. She didn't answer. She just kept listening. The notes wrapped around her like a blanket. It was nothing like the roaring hard rock from before, yet it had the same heart. Then, without warning, Evan changed the rhythm. The notes grew sharper, stronger. The sound carried more force now. Not painful, just more alive. It reminded her of the stage performance, but in miniature. Her ears perked forward. Catching every detail, she realized she didn't want him to stop. She wanted to hear what came next. After a few minutes, the song ended. The final note hung in the air, before fading into silence. Leora exhaled slowly. She hadn't even realized. She'd been holding her breath. That, Evan said, setting the guitar on his knee, is the first note that hooks you. You start small. You start safe. And then, before you know it, you want more. Leora tilted her head. And after that, he grinned. After that, you turn up the volume. Her ears twitched, louder than the stage. She asked with a nervous laugh. He shrugged playfully. Not yet, but close. From across the room, the band began tuning their instruments again. The faint sound of drums tested the air. The crowd was returning to their places. The storm was coming back. Evan stood and held out his hand. Come on, he said. You've heard hard rock's whisper. Now it's time to hear its voice. For a moment, she didn't move. Part of her still feared what the sound might do. But another part, the part that had just been wrapped in warm notes, was curious. Curiosity won. She placed her hand in his again. All right, she said. But if my ears start ringing, you'll stop, promise, he said. They walked back toward the stage. The lights flared bright. The first heavy chord filled the club, and Leora felt her heart jump, in time with the beat. The first heavy chord rang out from the stage. It was deeper than anything Leora had heard before. The sound rolled through her chest, like a giant wave. Her instinct was to step back, but Evan's steady hand kept her in place. You're fine, he said, smiling. Just breathe with it. She tried. The drum beat came next. Boom, 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 steady as a heartbeat. Her own heart tried to match it. It was strange, almost frightening. But there was something thrilling about it too. The crowd around them began to move. Heads nodded. Bodies swayed. Some people jumped in time with the beat. It wasn't random. They all seemed connected, as if one invisible thread tied them together. Evan leaned toward her ear. This song is called Run Free, he said. It's about letting go of fear. The word stayed in her mind. Letting go of fear. Wasn't that exactly what she had been holding on to? Every step inside this club had been against her instincts. But here she was, still standing, still listening. The music picked up speed. The guitar screamed in bright, sharp notes. The crowd cheered. Someone beside her raised both arms in the air. Another laughed out loud. Eyes closed, lost in the sound. Leora felt a strange pull inside her. A desire to join them. Not to stand still like a statue, but to move. Her foot tapped once. Then again. She didn't even notice at first. Evan saw it and grinned. That's it, he said. Don't fight it. The chorus hit. It was louder, stronger. The whole room jumped together. Even the floor seemed to bounce. Leora's body tensed, but then, something shifted. It was like a tight knot inside her chest, suddenly loosened. Her shoulders relaxed. She stopped worrying about the next sound. Instead, she let it hit her, and it didn't hurt. It filled her. Her head began to nod with the beat. Her hands moved slightly at her sides. It was small at first, but it felt good, like she was no longer holding her breath. The singer's voice rose above the instruments. It was raw and powerful, even though she didn't know every word. She could feel what it meant. A call to be free, to break from the walls inside. Your own mind. Evan jumped in place during the next drum break. Leora laughed. The sound surprised her. She couldn't remember the last time she had laughed in public. It wasn't something Illyrians did often. But in this moment, she didn't care. The music built higher. The crowd shouted in time with the singer. Leora didn't shout, but she felt the same rush they did. Her chest buzzed with energy. Her fear was fading, replaced by something else. Excitement. Evan leaned close again. Feels different when you stop fighting it, doesn't it? She nodded quickly. Yes, she said over the music. It feels alive. The guitarist moved forward for a solo. His fingers flew over the strings, creating a wave of bright notes that seemed to race through the air. Leora's eyes widened. She could feel every note in her skin. It was electric. It was impossible to ignore. The crowd's movement slowed as the solo ended. The song dropped to a quieter verse. For a moment, it was almost gentle again. It gave her a chance to breathe. She realized she was no longer tense. Her hands, her shoulders, even her ears felt at ease. Then came the final chorus. The instruments roared together one last time. Evan shouted the words, along with the rest of the crowd. And this time, without thinking, Leora moved more than before, her head nodding, her body swaying in time. She wasn't copying anyone. She was simply letting go. When the song ended, the cheers were loud enough to shake the walls. Leora's cheeks were warm. She felt as if she had just stepped out of sunlight. Her breathing was quick, but it wasn't from fear. Evan looked at her with a knowing smile. You did it, he said. You let go. She tilted her head. I didn't even realize it, she admitted. It just happened. That's the best way, Evan said. You can't force it. You have to let the music take you there. She glanced back at the stage. The band was waving to the crowd, preparing for the next song. For the first time, she wasn't dreading what came next. She was curious, eager. Her mind went back to the warning she'd heard all her life, that human hard rock was dangerous, painful, even harmful. But now, standing here with her heart still beating in time with the drums, she knew that wasn't the whole truth. Yes, it was powerful. Yes, it was loud, but it was also something else. Something that could open a door inside you, and Leora had just stepped through it. Asterisk. The stage lights dimmed for a moment. Only a low hum came from the speakers. The crowd buzzed with restless energy. Waiting for the next song, Leora stood near the front now, shoulder to shoulder with strangers. But somehow, she didn't feel out of place anymore. Evan leaned toward her. This one's going to be big, he said with a grin. They saved the best for last. She raised an eyebrow. Bigger than the last one. Oh yeah, he said, but you're ready. She wasn't sure if she was. Her heart was still recovering from the last song, but a spark of curiosity had replaced the knot of fear she used to feel. The drummer tapped his sticks together. 1, 2, 3, 4, and the band exploded into sound. It hit her like a warm wind. The bass thumped in her chest. The guitar sliced through the air. The singer's voice rose above it all like a call across mountains. The crowd moved instantly. They jumped. They swayed. They clapped in time. Evan moved with them. And this time, Leora didn't stand still. Her feet shifted to the beat. Her head began to nod. It felt natural. It felt right. She realized something. The sound no longer scared her. Her ears, once tense and ready to close, now leaned toward the music. She wanted to hear more, not less. The song's rhythm shifted. It slowed down, deep and steady. The lights above the stage turned gold, bathing everyone in a warm glow. In that moment, Leora felt something strange, a sense of connection, not just with Evan, not just with the band, but with everyone in the room. It was as if the music had tied them together. Different species, different worlds, but here, they were the same, moving to the same heartbeat. The singer stepped back from the microphone and let the crowd sing the next lines. Voices rose all around her. Leora didn't know the words, but the energy wrapped around her like a wave. She could almost feel it lifting her. Evan caught her eye and smiled. This, he said, is why we play for this feeling. She didn't answer. She was too busy feeling it. The music was no longer just sound, it was color and light in her mind. She saw bright streaks of gold and red with every drumbeat, cool blues and greens in the guitar's slower notes. Her species never spoke of music this way. To them, sound was something to be controlled. But here, it was free, and she was free with it. The song built toward its peak. The guitarist stepped forward, his fingers a blur. The drummer's arms moved like lightning. The singer's voice cracked with power and emotion. The crowd moved faster. Leora moved with them. She wasn't thinking about her ears, or her fear, or her mother's warnings. She was thinking only about now. Then came the final chorus. Everyone's voices joined together. The floor shook under her boots. The lights flashed like stars falling. Her heart pounded in perfect time with the drums. She felt unstoppable, alive in a way she never had before. The last note rang out and faded. The crowd roared. Leora found herself clapping, cheering along with them. She didn't even realize she was smiling so widely until Evan laughed. "You're one of us now," he said. "Welcome to the world of hard rock." She tilted her head. "One of you." He nodded. "Someone who doesn't just hear the music, someone who feels it." Leora thought about that. A few hours ago, she had feared even standing near this club. Now, she couldn't imagine walking away. The music had awakened something inside her, something she didn't know existed. "I think," she began slowly. "I think I understand now." Evan grinned. "And this is just the beginning," he said. "You haven't even been to a real concert yet." Her eyes widened. "This isn't real." "Oh, it's real," he said. "But out there, with thousands of people, that's another level." She laughed, shaking her head. "I'm not sure my heart could take that much." "You'd be surprised," he said with a wink. The band thanked the crowd, promising more shows. People began to move toward the exits, talking excitedly. Leora stayed still for a moment, just listening to the fading echoes. It was like saying goodbye to a friend she had only just met. Evan touched her shoulder. "Come on," he said. "I'll walk you out." As they stepped into the quiet hallway outside, Leora noticed how different the silence felt now. Before, silence was her comfort. Now, it felt empty. She realized she missed the music already. She turned to Evan. "Will you play for me again?" she asked, almost shyly. "Any time," he said with a smile, and she knew he meant it. The corridor outside the club was quiet. Only the faint hum of the space station's systems filled the air. For a moment, Leora felt as if she had stepped into another world, one without the heartbeat of drums or the roar of guitars. She walked beside Evan. Her boots echoed softly on the metal floor, but inside her mind, the music still played. She could hear the rise and fall of the last song. She could feel the rhythm in her chest like a second heartbeat. "You all right?" Evan asked, glancing at her. She nodded. "Yes," she said, "but it feels strange. Like the music is still here." "That's normal," he said with a grin. "It stays with you for a while." They reached a wide window that looked out over the endless black of space. Stars shone like silver dust scattered across the darkness. Leora stood there for a moment, staring. Her homeworld was somewhere out there, quiet, controlled, distant. Would she see it the same way now? Evan pulled something from his pocket, a small, flat device. He pressed a button, and a familiar sound filled the air. It was a softer version of the music they had heard inside. He handed it to her. "Here," he said. "It's a recording of tonight's set, so you can listen whenever you want." She held the device carefully. It was warm from his hand. "You're giving this to me?" she asked. "Of course," he said. "You're part of the hard rock family now." Her lips curved into a smile. She didn't know if her people would understand. They might even tell her to throw it away, but she knew she wouldn't. Not now. Not ever. They walked together toward the docking bays. Other station residents passed by, talking, laughing. Some wore shirts with strange designs. Bands, Evan called them, and she recognized a few symbols from the club's posters. She realized something. Before tonight, she saw humans as unpredictable, maybe even dangerous. Now, she saw them as alive. They poured themselves into their music, the way Illyrians poured themselves into their art of crystal shaping. But human music wasn't delicate. It was bold, fearless, and somehow, it had reached into her and lit a spark. When they reached the small transport lift, Evan turned to her. "So, will I see you again?" She tilted her head, pretending to think. "Maybe," she said, though her eyes were already bright with the answer. He laughed. "You will," he said with certainty. The lift doors opened, and she stepped inside. He gave her a small wave. "Play it loud," he called after her. The doors closed. and the lift carried her toward the residential sector. She looked down at the music device in her hands. It felt heavier than it should, not in weight, but in meaning. When she reached her quarters, the room was silent. She set the device on her table. For a long moment, she just stared at it. Her old self would have put it away and gone to rest. But tonight she wanted more. She pressed the button. The first notes flowed out, filling the room. It wasn't as loud as the club, but it still made her heart beat faster. She sat back in her chair, closed her eyes, and let the sound carry her. She remembered standing in the doorway, afraid to step inside. She remembered the first soft notes of Evan's guitar, the way the crowd moved like one. The moment she laughed without thinking, the feeling of letting go. She realized something important. The warnings she'd grown up with weren't wrong about the power of hard rock, but they were wrong about what that power meant. It wasn't meant to harm. It was meant to free. Her eyes opened. She looked out the small window of her quarters at the stars. Somewhere out there, Evan was still at the club. Somewhere out there, music was still playing. And now, she was part of that world. Leora leaned back and smiled to herself. She knew she would return. She knew she would stand in that crowd again. And she knew that, from now on, silence would never feel the same. Because once you've heard the voice of hard rock, you can never go back.